Publius Cornelius Tacitus, on Thrasyllus the Astrologer and Emperor Tiberius, from the Annals, Book 6, translated by Arthur Murphy, 1753, read by David Prager Branner. A remarkable story relating to the astrologer Thrasyllus. Whenever Tiberius chose to consult an astrologer, he retired with him to the top of the house, attended by a single freeman selected for the purpose, illiterate, but of great bodily strength. This man conducted the soothsayer, whose talents were to be tried, along the ridge of the cliff on which the mansion stood, and as he returned, if the emperor suspected fraud or vain affectation of knowledge, he threw the impostor headlong into the sea. Tiberius was by these means left at ease, and no witness survived to tell the story. Thrasyllus was put to the same test. Being led along the precipice, he answered a number of questions, and not only promised imperial splendor to Tiberius, but opened a scene of future events in a manner that filled his imagination with astonishment. Tiberius desired to know, in his words, whether he had cast his own nativity. Could he foresee what was to happen in the course of a year, nay, on that very day? Thrasyllus consulted the position of the heavens and the aspect of the planets. He was struck with fear. He paused. He hesitated. He sunk into profound meditation. Terror and amazement shook his frame. Breaking silence at last, "I perceive," he said, "the crisis of my fate. This very moment may be my last." Tiberius clasped him in his arms, congratulating him both on his knowledge and his escape from danger. From that moment he considered the predictions of Thrasyllus as the oracles of truth, and the astrologer was ranked in the number of the prince's confidential friends. When I reflect on this fact, and others of a similar nature, I find my judgment so much on the balance that, whether human affairs are governed by fate and immutable necessity, or left to the wild rotation of chance, I am not able to decide. Among the philosophers of antiquity, and the followers of their different sects among the moderns, two opposite opinions have prevailed. According to the system of one party, in their words, in all that relates to man, his formation, his progress, and his end, the gods have no concern, and by consequence calamity is often the good man's portion, while vice enjoys the pleasures and advantages of the world. In opposition to this hypothesis, another school maintains, as they say, that the immutable law of fate is perfectly consistent with the events of the moral world. That law, they tell us, does not depend on the course of wandering planets, but is fixed in the first principles of things, supported and preserved by a chain of natural causes. Man, notwithstanding, is left at liberty to choose his sphere of action, but the choice once made, the consequences follow in a regular course, fixed, certain, and inevitable. By this sect we are farther taught, as they say, that good and evil are not always what vulgar error has so defined. On the contrary, many whom we see struggling with adversity are yet perfectly happy, while others, in all the pride and affluence of fortune, are truly wretched. The former, by their fortitude, tower above the ills of life, and the latter, by their indiscretion, poison their own felicity. Sublime as this theory may be, there is still a third opinion which has taken root in the human mind and cannot be eradicated. According to this doctrine, The color of our lives is fixed in the first moment of our existence, and though what is foretold, and the events that follow, may often vary, the fallacy is not to be imputed to the art itself, but to the vanity of pretenders to a science respected by antiquity and in modern times established by undoubted proof. In fact, the reign of Nero was foretold by the son of this very Thrasyllus, but this, to avoid a long digression, shall be reserved for its proper place. The translator adds a note. This whole passage about fate and chance shows, after all the philosophy of Plato and Cicero, that nothing but revelation could disperse the mist in which the best understandings were involved. The reasoning of Tacitus calls to mind the passage in Milton. Others apart sat, on a hill retired, in thought more elevate, and reasoned high of providence, foreknowledge, will, and fate. Fixed fate, free will, foreknowledge absolute, and found no end in wandering mazes lost.